difficulty. In the time that's left to me, I want to particularly talk about how the bill will impact in my own region. Obviously, I have a world-class university at the University of Wollongong in my area. The implications from this legislation is that my university, the University of Wollongong, will have a funding cut of $45.7 million over the next 4 years. Of course, that's part of a $617.8 million cut across New South Wales. That is a direct hit to the bottom line of the university. Now, that either plays out in reduced quality, reduced range of offerings for students, and increased costs being put on to the students. So the students at my university have had many rallies and protests about their serious concern about the implication of this bill on them. And it is the case that we have persistently high youth unemployment in my area, and I will not stop campaigning and lobbying in support of post-secondary education in my area, because at the end of the day, that is the thing that will give young people a bit of a fighting chance in a market and an employment market that is rapidly changing, and that for them to be competitive in, they need the foundation of a post-secondary education. So I will continue to fight for my TAFEs and my university and for the students that need them to be there in our community. I'm particularly concerned to see some of the proposals by the government around the Higher Education Partnerships and Participation Program. This is a program that particularly supports disadvantaged Australians to get a university education, and I'd like to point out I've met at a number of universities across the country Indigenous students who've found access into higher education through this program. There's already been nearly $200 million cut from it, and I really have serious concerns about how we're going to continue to make sure that students from all walks of life who have the capacity and interest are able to participate in a university education. Finally, I want to just contrast the approach of the government with what Labor did when we were in government. And it is important to note that we took very seriously the significance of investing in education and also in investing in higher education. It's very clear that the focus of both the Rudd and Gillard governments was to invest in higher education. We lifted it. When we came to government, it was about $8 billion in 2007. And by 2013, we had lifted that to $14 billion, a significant increase after the Howard years when universities were under the pump and saw their funding consistently slashed. In my own area also, through things like the higher education infrastructure investment that we put in place, there was $135 million invested in my university. $25.1 million was invested in a sustainable buildings research centre. $42.8 million was invested in the Australian Institute for Innovative Materials. $35 million was invested in the SMART facility, which is a simulation modelling analysis, research and teaching infrastructure facility. And $31 million was invested in an early start facility, which is about driving transformation and outcomes for children, particularly from vulnerable and disadvantaged backgrounds. That's $135 million, and the Deputy Leader visited it only recently with me and saw the wonderful work that they are doing there. $135 million Labor governments in our, under the Rudd and Gillard years invested in my university that is now seeing world-class research in critically important areas to our economy and society, which is seeing significant employment boost in my area, which is seeing the university enabled to help in partnership with my local businesses and councils to transform our region at a time when we're under real pressure around making sure we have a future for manufacturing and steel. My university, working with local manufacturers, working with BlueScope to ensure that research and development can partner with them to give them a future. This university is driving so much of that agenda in my local area because Labor governments invested in it. I couldn't name anything from the Howard years that was anywhere near a match of the investment in my university by a Labor government, and I can't name anything that's happened under the Abbott and Turnbull governments that would even come close to reflecting the investment of Labor governments in my university, in the people of my region. And this bill before us today is only an addition to the gallery of shame by Liberal governments on the higher education sector. It should be rejected, and I support the amendment that the Deputy Leader of the Opposition has moved, and I will continue to fight on behalf of my university and my community and the students who rely on it.
Time has expired.